Good morning. Most people probably know the name of the first man to walk on the moon. That's right, Neil Armstrong. Most also know the name of the second man to walk on the moon, if only because a famous character from Toy Story was named after him, Buzz Aldrin, who lent his name to Buzz Lightyear. A fairly common quiz question, though, is who was the third man on the Apollo 11 mission? The man who stayed in the command module, whilst Armstrong and Aldrin moved to the landing module and set down on the lunar surface. His name was Michael Collins. He died last week at the age of 90, and I wanted to talk to you about him today and also about loneliness. When Michael Collins was piloting the command module, Armstrong and Aldrin were on the moon. At 5:44 on July the 20th, 1969, the lunar module, codenamed Eagle, separated from Collins's command module, codenamed Columbia. The Eagle landed. Men walked on the moon, spoke to the president in the White House, and then headed back to the command module. All in all, they were away from Collins for a little over a day. In that time, Michael Collins was 60 miles away from them, orbiting the moon 30 times. Whenever Collins was on the moon's dark side, he was out of contact with the Earth for 48 minutes at a time. He was one of the few people who didn't see his crewmates walk on the moon. He didn't have a TV set on board. He was the furthest away from Earth that any human had, and indeed has, ever been. He was terrified that his colleagues' craft would malfunction and leave them stranded on the moon, and that he would have to return to Earth alone. He was scared, and he was alone, but he wasn't lonely. Indeed, he described his time on the far side of the moon as relaxing. Michael Collins had more cause to feel lonelier than any other human that has lived. He was nearly 240,000 miles away from home, not able to talk to anyone for nearly an hour at a time, but he was not lonely. Perhaps the reason that Michael Collins wasn't lonely was because what he was enduring was solitude, not loneliness. Solitude is, simply put, a lack of contact with people. Loneliness is something else entirely. Loneliness is an interesting phenomenon. There are two principal types of loneliness: social and emotional. Social loneliness is when people don't feel that they have a social network, when they don't have friends, family, or any allies to call upon. In our interconnected world, this type of loneliness might seem relatively uncommon. After all, we're always one message, one phone call away from a friend, aren't we? Emotional loneliness is an altogether different beast. It is when someone doesn't have any deep or nurturing relationships with other people. It is possible then to have a wide social network, to have friends, to have contacts, to not be socially lonely, but to be emotionally lonely. If that network, if those friends, if those contacts aren't nurturing you and giving you what you need. Thinking on the difference between loneliness and solitude is interesting. There have been some people in history who have famously sought solitude. One of the most famous of these is Simon Stylites, who was a Syrian saint. He was especially interesting because he was desperate to escape people. He was desperate to be alone. He was so desperate, in fact, that he decided that the only way to be truly alone was to live on top of a pillar. His pillar was 50 foot from the ground and had a platform on the top of about 1 square metre. The Greek word for pillar is a style, hence his name, Simeon Stylites. Now, choosing to live on a pillar for a bit of peace and quiet is something that might appear quirky. However, Simeon stayed on his pillar until he died, 37 years later. Now that is commitment to seeking solitude. Simeon wasn't lonely though. He was attempting, in his own unique way, to get closer to his God. He was fulfilled and had a relationship that was undoubtedly nurturing. Whenever I hear the word solitude, I think of one thing: Superman. The DC comic book hero has a giant crystal fortress somewhere in the Arctic. It's where he goes to be alone. And in the original Superman film, it's where Clark Kent goes to train for 12 years before emerging into the world as Superman. The Fortress of Solitude is not, though, a fortress of loneliness. In it, Superman spends time with the artificial intelligence of his Kryptonian father, Jor-El, as he prepares to become the Man of Steel. He is working, practicing, training. He is never alone and therefore never able to be lonely. Michael Collins, as he orbited the moon 30 times, made sure that he was always busy. He busied himself with various tasks while waiting in the command module for the return of his friends. Because he kept himself busy, he reported that what he felt was not loneliness, but instead awareness, anticipation, satisfaction, confidence, almost exultation. Proper loneliness, though, is a horrible affliction. In 2018, the BBC conducted a loneliness experiment which surveyed over 55,000 people. In that survey, over 40% of younger people asked said that they felt lonely often or very often. In a different piece of research from around the same time, the Office for National Statistics and the Children's Society reported that more 12-year-olds felt lonely than older children. In addition, the odds of loneliness are 7 times greater in children who report low happiness with their friendships compared with children who have very high happiness with their friends. So friends are the key. They are the thing that gives you a real sense of worth. What is a friend, though? How do they make your world a better place? I think that in many ways, a lot of our sense of what a friend should be comes from the TV series of the same name. Friends was and is a TV and Netflix phenomenon. 6 friends living in New York in the 1990s who seemed to spend every hour together, drinking endless cups of coffee and sharing the highs and lows of their lives. It's funny, occasionally sad, and often filled with pathos, which means something that evokes compassion in the watcher. When Ross becomes a father, when Monica breaks up with Richard, when Joey moves out of Chandler's apartment, we feel compassion, we feel pathos. However, I've often wondered if Friends has given us all a slightly false idea of what friendship is. Is it really walking into your own apartment and seeing your friends already there watching your TV? Is it spending every single holiday with your friends? Is it having all of those friends present at the birth of your children? I don't think it is. The TV series Friends, though, gave a whole generation a sense that solitude, being alone, was a bad thing. You shouldn't ever have to be alone, right? Indeed, in New York in the 90s, it didn't seem that you could ever be alone. I do wonder whether there is a generation of people who think that unless you are always connected to your friends, you can never be truly happy. This has probably been exacerbated by the current definition of friendship on social media. Lots of people have loads of friends, but often only have very superficial friendships. I think that in real life, friendship is probably somewhere between living in each other's pockets, like the friends in Friends do, and having 1,000 friends on Snapchat, most of whom you don't really know, and who don't really know you. Simeon Stylites, Superman, Michael Collins all experienced solitude, but they never experienced loneliness. It wasn't because their friends were constantly there, and it wasn't because they necessarily had hundreds of friends. Instead, they weren't lonely because the relationships they had were deep, significant, and were about shared experiences. Simeon's relationship with God, Superman's with his father, and Michael Collins's with Aldrin and Armstrong and the mission. They were true relationships that were nurturing and were able to help in tough times. It might be that you only manage 5 or 10 such friendships in your life. The key thing, though, is that these friends, those real friends, are always there with you and mean that you'll never truly be lonely. To finish, I'd like to read you something by perhaps the greatest author on the subject of friendship in the English language, A. Milne, in his Winnie the Pooh books. Wherever I am, there's always Pooh. There's always Pooh and me. Whatever I do, he wants to do. Where are you going today, says Pooh. Well, that's very odd, because I was too. Let's go together, says Pooh, says he. Let's go together, says Pooh. Let's frighten the dragons, I said to Pooh. That's right, said Pooh to me. I'm not afraid, I said to Pooh, and I held his paw and I shouted, shoo, silly old dragons, and off they flew. I wasn't afraid, said Pooh, said he. I'm never afraid with you. So wherever I am, there's always Pooh. There's always Pooh and me. What would I do, I said to Pooh, if it wasn't for you? And Pooh said, true. It isn't much fun for one, but two can stick together, says Pooh, says he. That's how it is, says Pooh. Have a wonderful weekend.